Let's go. Philadelphia Eagles 34, Washington Commanders 31. This was a great game. This turned into the game that everybody had to watch on your Fox affiliate because it went to overtime. But the Eagles win in overtime with, a 56-yard field goal. It was a funky end as far as 54-yard field goal. Jake Elliott. That's his name, right? The kicker?
Yes.
I mentioned a kicker.
You did.
Great.
Well done.
How about that? Jalen Hurts, really nice game, throwing the ball down the field. And this was I always call this the A.J. Brown game. This is the game where A.J. Brown just decides to take over 59-yarder where he's weaving through the defense. And when I cite how good the Eagles are, I like to cite that they have different ways to win. And they've had these games where everybody's like, where's the pass game? Where's the pass game? It's like, well, when they need it, they have the ability, and this is one of the games where they showed that ability. A.J. Brown finishes with 9 catches for $175 and 2 scores.
Yeah. Honestly, that was a different, there's a lot to talk about in this game, but if you wanted to sum it up in a nutshell, this was the game where Washington just could not stop A.J. Brown at all. There were multiple kind of shot plays to A.J. Brown that made the difference in this one. There are some where it's like it's a hole in the zone. It's a really good throw by Jalen Hurts, and there are others where it's like, come on, what are we doing here? Like the last play, or the last sort of big play to him was just like a double move against Emmanuel Forbes, the rookie, and it's like, feels like we probably should have had that covered, but didn't, apparently.
Sometimes we talk about the pregame matchups, and it's like, here's this matchup to watch, or this one where we think there'll be an advantage. And a lot of times we're citing the Eagles' defensive line and Sam Howell coming off a game where he got sacked 9 times. Now, I know he got sacked 5 times here, but I think it was 3 by Nicholas Morrow, the linebacker. Yep. This didn't go as I expected. The Commanders came right out firing. Their first drive, Sam Howell's making great throws, picking them apart.
14-play, 7-minute drive to open the game.
Took up, the first half of the first quarter. So my point, I guess, is the Eagles' pass rush was not as dominant as I thought that they would be against it. They should be overmatched. They should be able to overmatch the Commanders' offensive line, and they should have probably had more pressure and more negative plays against Sam Howell with their 4-man rush, and they were unable to do that. So credit Washington for that. That was what kept them in the game, so Howell could sit in the pocket. And when he sits in the pocket and throws the football, for the most part, it's been really good this year.
We talked the other week that was like the perfect storm of bad Sam Howell, right? He was taking ridiculous sacks that he shouldn't take, and then also kind of blindly lobbing the ball up for grabs. And those two things together are a terrible combination. When they happen, you're going to get an awful quarterback performance and an awful offense. But this was like the good version of Sam Howell, which is okay. There's going to be some plays where he lingers in the pocket a little bit too long. But when he actually just trusts what he sees and puts the ball in the air, he's a pretty good quarterback. And I thought that was it. Generally, I think the Eagles' pass rush was a little bit too much for Washington's offensive line. And the sacks, it was a really close game. That, in amongst a number of different things, is the difference between the two teams. Philadelphia's defensive line probably did matter. But Washington did a good job. This was a gritty, fighting performance. Brian Robinson Jr. with a triple or quadruple effort to get in for a touchdown. Now, fumbled the ball over the goal line, and Terry McLaurin had to save it and create a touchdown. But I forget who it was, there's an Eagles DB. He bounced that guy on contact, and that was the 3rd hit he took over the course of that run. Really impressive run by him. There were some good performances in this game by Washington.
A couple other things I wanted to highlight. The Eagles mentioned a little disappointment in their pass rush. On the other side, I would be disappointed in the Washington Commanders in their pass rush. They're 2 weeks removed from completely harassing the Broncos and Russell Wilson in that 4-man front that we've lauded plenty of times with Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Montez Sweat, Chase Young. The Eagles had one of the best pass protection games of the season, gave up only a handful of pressures. Eagles, from a pass protection standpoint, absolutely dominant. And then Jalen Hurts. Again, I think the Eagles, I don't look at rushing yard stats. Were they the number 2 rushing team or number 1 rushing team, whatever it was coming in? they had those games where they ran all over the Vikings, or they had a big lead against New England, or they were running the ball a lot. We haven't seen them have to open it up in the pass game, but Jalen Hurts, 4 big-time throws in the second half, most of them going to A.J. Brown. And the Eagles, even when they're down multiple scores, can lead a comeback through the air. They can win a game where Hurts doesn't have to do much through the air, and they're just running it. They can win a game where their pass rush dominates and puts the defense in a bind. So many different ways to win for this Eagles team.
Should Ron Rivera have to officially abdicate the Riverboat Ron nickname for not going for 2 to win the game at the end?
Yeah, so end of the game, Commanders were, making this comeback, right? And usually when you are the underdog, I'll get to answer your question in a minute. I'm trying to set it up, right?
Cool.
Usually when you're the underdog and you're up 17-7 and you're lurking, and the Eagles take a 24-17 lead. Like, we see this game flow a lot. The 9-point underdogs that Washington was. Usually that at some point that catches up to you, right? Good job, Washington. Now you're done. The better team's going to run away with it. But the Commanders kept fighting back. They come back to tie it at 24. Eagles go up 31-24. It's like, okay, there's the 2-minute drive for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown for the double move touchdown. This game's over, right? Nice job, Washington. Thanks for coming out. You gave us a game, but the Eagles are a better team. And Washington drives down the field. Mm-hmm. Last play of the game, Sam Howell with a 10-yard touchdown to Jahan Dotson. And they kick the extra point to tie the game at 31. And look, we've seen a lot of coaches go for 2 for the win in the past. And I think I wonder if Nick Sirianni would have. Not just because he's aggressive and forward-thinking, but when you're like a 9-point favorite, usually it's okay. You extend the game. You're like, hey, overtime, weird stuff happens, but like overtime, we're going to win this game.
Right.
If you're Washington, though, you can't look at this game and be like, well, we've been competitive the entire day. You're the underdog, and you have one chance to win, one play to win. You have to take it, and they did not take it. So was it Cecily who suggested? Somebody suggested that the riverboat gets riverboat Ron gets thrown away.
Yeah, look, I just think you're not going to get better odds to win than one play from the 2-yard line. Like that's what you're dealing with here, right? Generally, the league is 50-50 on those plays. If you have a half decent offense, you're probably better than 50-50. It's not getting better than that by kicking, because you're still underdogs. Like, they're still the better team, unless they've lost half the squad through injuries over the last 60 minutes. They are still a better side than you are, which means essentially opting to reset. Let's go again for a 5th quarter. Puts you back to being an underdog, right? You're leveling the playing field again and saying, no, we're starting over. So they go back to being a favorite. Your best shot of winning this is this one play from the 2-yard line and go home. And instead, they kick and decide to play overtime, and they get the ball. Like the optimum scenario, we get the ball, let's go. And then, no, straight out, 3 and out.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point on the math there is, okay, let's pretend overtime is a 50-50 proposition.
Right, which it isn't.
Which it isn't, right, because one team's better, right? So if you're like, okay, let's say we have a 45% chance of winning, a 40% chance of winning because we're the underdog. Then you go to the 2-point conversion. The more you can pare it down to one play. I know the whole game rides on that one play. But like a loss on one play is no different than a loss in overtime. They both count the same. It's a loss. But you have a chance with one play. And some would even argue you've got the momentum. You just scored a touchdown. Not that matters at all.
Even that sequence, by the way, was crazy. Like the one to get to the tie. They get to the shadow of the goal line. They had 21 yards to pick up. They got 10 of it with a Terry McLaurin pass. They take a timeout, or Philadelphia takes a timeout with a few seconds left. They take a shot up the middle that was going to be short, and it was incomplete to Curtis Samuel.
there was 5 seconds left from the 10.
Right. They took a shot right over the middle.
And you could do like a quick hitter to the end zone to have a second shot, or you have one play. Right. You have 1 or 2 plays, but you have to do quick hitter to the end zone.
So they take a shot right over the middle. It's going to be a yard, if not 2, short to Curtis Samuel. It ends up being incomplete, but there's a second left on the clock.
If he caught it,
It was done. Game over.
If they were thinking quickly enough, you could let them catch it and tackle them, and the game's over.
So they get one last shot to it, and then they get the touchdown to Jahan Dotson. And then off the back of that, decide, no, we're good, let's play for overtime. And then in overtime, by the way, so 3 and out. But 3 and out doesn't describe what actually happened on third down. He completes a pass to Terry McLaurin, who coming down, the Eagles were effectively saved by the forearm of Reed Blankenship, because McLaurin makes this spectacular catch, and on his way down, gets 1 foot down, the second foot lands on the forearm of Reed Blankenship, and sort of what then rolls over, and the toe hits down on the turf as they're going out. And honestly, kind of looked like he was inbounds anyway, but definitely the difference between being ruled out of bounds and being in bounds was the fact that his foot first had to go down on top of Blankenship's forearm, and had it just been able to hit the turf first, it would definitely have been in bounds. Just insane that we can play 60 minutes of this absurd, violent chess game, and then it comes down to whether or not your foot lands on the forearm of a dude on the way down. And that's our game right there.
Crazy. It was an awesome finish, and then even the Eagles at the end. I mean, they ended up in a 3rd and 17. So first off, a couple things. They go for a 4th and 1. Of course, Jalen Hurts picks it up. 4th and 1 from the 50. Riverboat Nick. Because if you don't get that, Washington's 15 yards from field goal range. Of course, they get the 4th and 1 to keep the drive alive in overtime. Like, the Eagles were just kind of trudging along in overtime. They get a 3rd and 17, pick up 9 to Devontae Smith to set up a 54-yarder for the game winner with 4 minutes left. Like, this was close to tie territory. The Eagles' game-winning drive was a 10-play, 23-yard drive in overtime to set up the 54-yarder, which is no gimme.
It's another reason, by the way, it's not 50-50 in overtime, because the tie is a possibility, and more of a possibility now that it's only a 10-minute period than it used to.
It's true. There really is.